All right. So hello to everyone joining us. Good morning and good evening wherever you are, and welcome to the US and FGMC Networks event, Human Rights and Women's Empowerment in Middle Eastern Communities. My name is Carrie Walovich, and I am the network's Operations and Partnerships Manager. Thank you all for joining us for our December membership engagement event. And for those of you that may not know, every month the network hosts an event that highlights and amplifies the incredible work and efforts of you, our members, and all that you're doing to eradicate FGMC in the United States and globally. The engagement series will not only help you stay informed about what your colleagues in the field are doing, but will provide a space for all of you to connect, discuss challenges and best practices, and highlight all of the wins and successes in our field. Our goal for this series is to provide our community members an opportunity to further collaborate and engage with one another so all of our voices are heard and we each have a chance to meaningfully contribute to ending FGMC in our communities. And with that, I am very excited and honored to introduce our guest, Ms. Habiba AlHinai, founder and executive director of the Omani Association of Human Rights. Thank you, Habiba, for being with us this morning for us and this evening for you, so we can learn more about your work and advocacy to advance human rights and FGMC abandonment in Oman. We would love to hear more about your background and experiences, as well as a bit of history on your organization.
Thank you very much for having me. So, my name is Habiba AlHinai. I come from Oman. I'm sure you can tell from my background. I am a women's rights activist since early 90s, a blogger and a writer, and I've been living in Germany since 2016. I have a long experience working as a human rights defender in many fields and speaking at local, regional, and international platforms. I am the founder and executive director of the Omani Association for Human Rights, which is based in Germany. Among the best of my initiatives was the campaign I led demanding the rights of Omani women married to non-Omanis to pass her nationality to her children. In 2017, I gathered evidence of more than 100 such cases and submitted them to the Minister of Social Development. Moreover, I did many interviews in local and international TV channels, radio stations and newspapers, also approached the international community, but still there were no significant changes made up to date. Also in October 2013, I started making dozens of interviews with prominent Arab human rights women. In 2014, I prepared a study about FGMC in Oman, followed with an online awareness campaign about the harmful effects of FGMC. So this is briefly what I've done. In January 2019, I joined Terre des Femmes, TDF in Berlin, as a change agent, which is a non-profit women's rights organization that supports women's and girls' rights. Now I am still a part of the change project under TDF, which are funded by the European Parliament in order to overcome FGMC and early forced marriage in affected communities in EU countries and beyond. I am also working closely with many regional and international NGOs, such as the Gulf Center for Human Rights, Global Campaign for Equal Nationality Rights, and the Institute of Statistics and Inclusion. And of course, now I am looking forward to working with you as a new member of this important network. Thank you.
Thank you, Habiba. We're so excited to, like I said earlier, learn more about your work and your advocacy. Your story is incredibly inspiring, and I'm so thankful that you're going to share a bit more about your background today with our viewers. So our first question is, what is the current human rights landscape like in Oman? And also, what is the landscape like for FGMC abandonment?
So I will start about the landscape of the human rights in Oman. So according to the latest announcement made by the Omani government on the 14th of December 2020, the total population of Oman is 4,471,000, including 2,730,000 Omanis and 1,740,000 expatriates. So the international ranking in the year 2020 World Press Freedom Index ranking, Oman was ranked 135 out of 180 countries, which is a drop of 3 positions compared to 2019. And the Global Gender Gap Index in 2020, Oman scored 144 out of 153 countries, which is pretty low. And there are only 9 countries which are lower than Oman, which are Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria, Pakistan, Iraq, Yemen. The global political environment and women in parliament index in 2020 ranked Oman 150 out of 153 countries, which is actually at the bottom of the list. Also, according to Civicus Monitor, civic space in Oman is currently classified as repressed. So Oman is a member of the Gulf Cooperation Council since 23 July 1970. The country was ruled by Sultan Qaboos bin Said, who became the longest serving ruler in the Middle East, reigning for almost 50 years. In 10 January 2020, Sultan Qaboos died, and his cousin Haytham bin Tariq, the former culture minister, was sworn in as the Oman new sultan. Despite the fact that Oman ratified some international human rights conventions and calls from activists and civil society for reforms during the first few months of the Sultan Haytham's reign, several social media activists were interrogated. Restrictions persist on provisions in the penal code are used to restrict freedom of expression, association, and assembly. There are deep concerns by the closure of civic space and the use of legislation to restrict civic space and limit the ability of human rights defenders and journalists to report effectively on human rights issues and the actions of the state. While the Constitution of Oman guarantees the rights of association, peacefully assembly and expression, restrictive legislation and policies, including the penal code, the law on association, the 1984 Press and Publication Law, and the Communications Act are routinely used to prevent independent human rights organizations from operating and subject human rights defenders to judicial prosecutions and arbitrary detention. The hostile environment for civil society has forced some human rights defenders to flee Oman, and all independent human rights organizations have either been closed by the authorities or work from abroad. Journalists and bloggers are routinely subjected to arbitrary arrests and judicial prosecutions without regard to the law. So if we talk, also independent newspapers have been shut down, and the authorities target writers and seek to silence them by jailing them and banning their books in Oman. So regarding women's rights, Oman is one of 25 countries that still denies women equal rights to pass nationality to their children. The law also lacks adequate safeguards to guarantee nationality to children who would otherwise be stateless. Omani men, by right, confer nationality on their children automatically. Omani women cannot. The child of an Omani mother and foreign father is recognized as Omani by birth only if paternity is not confirmed. So if paternity is confirmed, nationality may be granted if 8 strict conditions, such as the mother being widowed, divorced, or abandoned, and the child's continuous legal residence for 10 years are met. The child's mother is foreign, and father was Omani but became stateless. So gender discriminatory nationality laws are based on patriarchal stereotypes that a child belongs to a father whom from citizenship naturally derives. This undermines women's equal citizenship, their equality within the family, and their ability to choose a spouse, while also violating the child's right to a nationality. So the Omani Personal Law Status, OPSL, is administered by the Sharia courts of Oman, despite the equality guarantee of the basic law of OPSL, provides for a marital framework based on a wife is expected to obey her husband. Various broad legal provisions establish that the wife risks losing her financial rights if she chooses to disobey her husband. So there are many issues I can talk about women's rights, about the law does not provide an equal right to divorce, and which puts women and children at a vulnerable position in the family. Women's lives and stories reveal that Omani laws based on male authority and guardianship over women and are unjust and discriminatory. So I will carry on later maybe to give more examples.
That would be great. Thank you. And as far as FGMC abandonment in Oman?
Yes, in FGMC is reportedly practiced throughout Oman. A 2018 survey of 200 women in Dakhiliya province found that 95.5% of the women surveyed had undergone FGMC. 85% of participants expressed support for the practice. A 2014 study in the capital of Muscat surveyed 100 women from various regions across Oman, which I conducted, and found an FGMC prevalence of 78% among the survey sample. The survey also found that the practice continued to take place in 64% of families. The lack of national data of FGMC in the country means that it is difficult to determine whether the practice of FGMC is spread throughout the country, to identify areas, communities where prevalence is highest, and to design prevention and protection intervention to effectively tackle FGMC and provide care for survivors. Commendably, the government of Oman has amended the child law in August 2019 and has prohibited the practice of FGMC in any manner and declared FGM to be a harmful practice. Although the law banned FGMC in Oman, evidence suggests that it continues to be widely practiced, tolerated by the religious figures and many local communities in Oman. However, the government of Oman must take steps to implement and enforce the relevant laws and put an end to FGMC, thus ensuring the protection of girls. The Omani Association for Human Rights urged the Omani government to change its discriminatory laws to eliminate and remedy these violations and take decisive legal and policy action to eliminate the harmful practice of FGM and to take action in order to end the persistent pattern of injustice and discrimination against women and girls that sex discriminatory laws constitute and promote.
Thank you for that. I think that's incredibly helpful insight. And I think the lack of data around FGMC in Oman is an issue that's very pervasive around the world, right? This lack of data, because it is a sensitive topic, but not having the data to inform programming and prevention and treatment, like you said. And that's great to hear that Oman has a law outlawing FGMC, but I think, again, similar to a lot of countries around the world, it's the implementation that is hard and that is tricky. And now that you have that law in place, that is an incredible starting place. But how do you provide that legal framework to persecute and to inform the police and social workers, that entire system, to support the abandonment of this practice? So I think those are all things and topics that a lot of people advocating for the end of FGMC around the world can really identify with as issues they're facing as well. So thank you for that.
And adding to
yeah,
that,
please.
on 11th December 2020, a German broadcaster, DW, published an article based on a study confirming that in 2019, almost 2,000 patients in Germany were diagnosed with FGMC in need for treatment, including some 200 minors, demonstrating a sharp increase in recent years.
And that was in Germany.
Yes, that's
Wow.
Europe.
Yes, it's pervasive all over the world, even like in Europe, like in the United States. So thank you. I think that's a really important reminder as well, that this is a global issue that's happening everywhere, not just in certain areas. So our next question is focusing on your organization. And so what are the initiatives that you and the Omani Association are focusing on?
So some initiatives the Oman Association for Human Rights focused on in the context of human rights and women's rights are, there's a Motherland campaign. This campaign publicly calls on the Omani government to uphold the right of Omani women to confer their nationality on an equal basis with men, especially on their children. Of course, the end of FGMC in Oman and in new countries. Women's blog, this is a safe electronic space given to Omani women to express their concerns and opinions anonymously if they wish so, because there are taboo issues they not willing to expose themselves, and so they won't get a clash from the society. There's the Right to Return campaign to uphold the right to nationality for stateless persons of Omani descent in Africa, exactly in Tanzania, in Burundi in particular. Also, OHR are using international mechanism to promote human rights, such as a forthcoming submission to UN Human Rights Council's UPR, Universal Periodic Review in Oman, which is going to be on the 21st of January, 2021. On top of that, the CEDAW Convention, of course, labor and child's rights, advocacy and promoting women's rights in general, such as elevating issues related to gender inequality, documentation of violations of human rights in Oman, and continue to fight for reforms to advance human rights in Oman, and elevating issues related to freedom of speech and association, the rights of workers, and so on. Yeah.
Incredible work, lots of incredible work, it sounds like. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced this year?
Well, with the COVID-19, lots of challenges. I think it's
Sure.
global challenges that everyone is facing with the lockdown, and but one of the main challenges I faced, not just this year, is the working from exiles. I moved to Germany, which is things are more difficult, and the language barrier, because you cannot do things, the paperwork, it's difficult if you don't speak the language. So that obstacle to do the registrations for the organization, and finding activists who are interested in working for human rights issues in Oman. That is a big challenge, because many people don't know anything about Oman, and if we are just like any other countries, we have our challenges and our issues, our problems, but not many people are interested in working or know enough, have enough information so they can be involved. Also, there's lots of issues like getting information, training, funding. So yeah, I mean, and during the pandemic, traveling also became an obstacle. But we are trying to overcome now with such this event, I mean, online. So we are approaching everyone through the online activities.
That's great to hear. I know COVID has presented some particularly interesting challenges for all of us, but I'm glad to hear that you're pursuing a lot of the online opportunities, and hopefully when COVID is coming to an end, that will mean that you'll be able to continue doing more efforts in person. So crossing our fingers for everyone. And so what are some of the tactics that you've successfully utilized to promote human rights and women's empowerments in the communities you're working on? And I know that you are in Germany now, so perhaps you could speak to, what are the tactics that have worked when you were in Oman, and what are those tactics now that you're in Germany?
Actually, both were online, working
Oh,
online, because we are not allowed to form an independent NGOs in Oman. They all have to be supervised by the government, and you have to get the permission. So they aren't a really civil society on the ground in Oman. So my work inside Oman was online, but I am safer, of course, being abroad, because being in Oman, you are under threat of detention and courts and threats and lots of challenges. So online awareness, it's all about using the internet, campaigns and spreading information, online meetings such like this one, Facebook Live, YouTube. We have channels, our own channels on website and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. So we do lives and Zoom recorded videos, posted regularly, video clips for awareness, articles published on the website, and also using the hashtags, the WhatsApp, whatever is available online, that's what you use to promote our work and for our awareness.
Fantastic. We'll be sure to share all of those connections and social media handles and things like that with everybody that is watching it with the network, to make sure that everyone can follow you and keep up to date with your work. And so what advice do you have for activists that are working on these, quote, taboo issues that you said within Middle Eastern or perhaps Muslim communities, and are facing the kind of backlash that you experienced either from the government or from civil society itself? Excuse me.
My main advice will be repetition, and repetition. That's how it works, until the opponents get used to hearing your issues, and it becomes a regular matter to talk about and a normal issue to discuss. So when I started the FGMC online campaign, when I post my study and the results and I start talking about FGMC, I faced defamation, threats, name it, from the society, from those who are opponents, but I did not stop. I carry on posting and talking about it, and some of them say, you have no shame, how could you talk about such a thing? So I never stopped until it became normalized, and people are talking about it now and discussing it. So that's the main idea is just not to stop talking about the issue and not give up whatever the pressure you're getting. Also not working with NGOs or supportive personalities in your government and community. Join online advocacy campaigns and trainings, and to learn from similar experiences and learn from them to promote your campaign. And the most important thing is, do not give up. Don't give up, because changing communities and mindset of communities takes a very long time, and you have to have patience.
Thank you for that. And thank you for your bravery and your activism. I think that's excellent advice. And particularly during times like COVID, I think it's so easy to be exhausted and tired and potentially to lose hope. And I think that's a really important reminder and message, is to repeat, 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 find your advocates, and to keep going and know that you have this community of supporters behind you. So thank you for that. And what does the Omani Association of Human Rights hope to accomplish in this upcoming year in 2021?
My main hope is to build a sustainable work regarding human rights in Oman, especially women's rights. I would like to leave something for the next generation to be able to carry on and continue, not to start from scratch, from zero, like how we did. Also to address more issues and concerns that the local political level and international platforms, and to continue tackling human rights violations in Oman, and to be involved more in work with community empowerment, awareness raising, and in Oman and my new community in Germany as well. Also, of course, I have hopes like registration of the OHAR and other build capacities, and improve more knowledge and awareness in the local community as well.
Yes. Well, the network is very excited to support you in those endeavors. It sounds like wonderful goals for 2021 that I'm sure a lot of other organizations are aiming towards as well, and can certainly identify with. So that's exciting news to hear that you continue to grow and continue your activism. And so our final question today is one that we ask of all of our wonderful speakers during this engagement series. And that is, as a network member, what do you think the network could do to best engage with and support your organization moving forward?
Increasing awareness of OAHR's activities and programs, introducing them, and the status of human rights in Oman, especially women's rights. Inform the organization of any events and programs which OAHR could interested in participating, and share experience and gain knowledge. Networking and keep in touch, and and work together and learn from each other.
Certainly. Thank you. And that is definitely, those activities are important to us, and things that we definitely have plans to continue doing, and not only just amplifying important organizations like yours, but making those connections and providing a space for all of you for everyone to come together and to share those best practices and challenges. So that's wonderful to hear that that's something that you're A, looking for, and B, that we are planning for 2021. Well, Habiba, I want to thank you again for your time and for teaching us more about human rights and women's empowerment in Oman, as well as your journey and your organization, the Omani Association of Human Rights. We appreciate your work, and again, your bravery and activism. And we just are really thankful that for for your efforts to continue advancing human rights and abandoning FGMC in Oman, but then, you know, around the world. I think what you're doing really reverberates, and a lot of other activists around the world can identify with. So thank you for your advice and your insights and just telling your story today. We appreciate it.
If you may allow me, I would like to conclude our discussion today in the memory of an intelligent young Omani University student. Her name is Zuena. Zuena was studying physics at a university in Oman. She was suffering from a severe depression, and sadly, 3 days ago, she took her own life. And yet, despite this shocking and tragic incident, Zuena was subjected to a fierce online defamation campaign, and there was those who accused her of being an infidel and confirmed that she is definitely going to hell for committing suicide. She left us a very emotional handwritten letter, which she wrote in English. She concluded her letter with the following final words, quote, "I am not going to hell. I am getting out of it." May her soul now rest in peace, my dear Zuena, and thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you so much. Take care, and we look forward to more conversations with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.